Hi, it's Maria
and Christopher
from Still Dreaming Homestead. And we're so glad you're back with us well, we're doing this in the evening. I'm not sure what time of day you're watching it. Could be at night, could be in the day. Christopher, you want to tell us a little bit of what happened on chapter 2? Because we were reading the book, The Ghost Dog of Stony Ridge.
Woo!
And yesterday, it was a mystery car. So just give us a short recap on that.
So they found a garage sale on their way to Boot Malone's house.
So
looking for
DJ and Alfred?
Yeah, and their grandpa.
Right.
And DJ's grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
So then Grandpa got his rocking chair back. That was in book 1, the hair pulling bear dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they left, this weird black car started following them. But DJ and Alfred at the garage sale noticed it was the same voice that scared them off.
Yeah, and threatened them
with a gun. And then they noticed it was the same guy.
So, that black car, was it really following them?
Yes, it was.
Oh, it was. So, Grandpa's told them they need to be extra careful for a few days, but I'm not really sure that DJ and Alfred are going to be able to do that. I mean, they told Grandpa they would, and I think they'll try, but it's pretty hard when there's a mystery. And in case you see this blue line on Christopher, there was an arrow here too. He was the Avatar.
If you even know what Avatar is.
Yeah, it's a cartoon. Okay, so chapter 3, 2 strangers and a ghost dog. The next morning, Saturday, DJ rode with his father to Indian Springs, the county seat. It was an isolated mountain community of 6,000 people. Elmer Kirsten, editor and publisher of the county's weekly newspaper, the Gazette, didn't come in until after 10 o'clock on Saturdays. So DJ dropped off his stories and then had some time to kill. He decided not to go to the hardware store with Dad, but to eat breakfast. In the cafe, DJ planned to go back and talk to Mr. Kirsten after breakfast. By then, DJ was very hungry. He was the lone customer when he ordered. Then he sat on the counter stool looking around. Can you look around? He's looking around. He heard the perspiring cook call, and perspiring is hot in the kitchen, so he's sweating. "Pick up, Nellie." DJ saw the dark-haired waitress reach for a plate of ham and eggs. She turned to serve DJ just as a small, thin, middle-aged man and teenage boy entered the diner and sat down on the next 2 stools besides DJ. DJ muttered, "Thanks," as the waitress placed his breakfast before him. He closed his eyes in a silent blessing over the food. He was barely aware of the thin man's crisp, tight words. "I'll have ham and eggs, too, Nellie." Don't do that. "Sorry, Mr. Craner, but the meat truck didn't come yet this morning. I just served the last in the house to this young man." Mr. Crater said flatly, "Then I'll have these." DJ opened his blue eyes in disbelief. He saw the bony right hand scooping up his untouched breakfast order. He was taking it. DJ said uncertainly, "but..." "No need to fuss, boy," the thin man said, his bald head shining. "You can order something else." "Ormley, what are you going to have?" The boy was called Ormley. He was about 15, DJ guessed. Ormley was a copy of the older man. Both had thin, straw-colored hair plastered tight to their skulls. The man and boy both had receding hairlines. That means it's going back. you know, like back and back.
Like the stripe.
Yeah. High cheekbones and large hooked noses. They were thin as violin strings, but there was a hardness about their features. Their hazel eyes darted about like nervous weasels peering into a hen house. Mr. Crater picked up his paper napkin and tucked it in the top of his patched blue shirt, which was buttoned up to his neck, so he tucked it in right up here. Ormley grinned at DJ in the way that set DJ's teeth on edge. However, DJ swallowed hard and automatically reached for his plate, which Mr. Crater had just set in front of himself. "Excuse me, mister, but I ordered these ham and eggs and—" "Order something else," the man snapped, jerking his left forearm so sharply it knocked DJ's hand away. The man didn't look up, but plunged his fork into the 2 sunny-side-up eggs and rapidly mixed the yellow yolks with the whites. DJ blinked and looked at the waitress. She shrugged and lowered her voice. "Go ahead, kid. Order something else." Again, DJ hesitated. Are you the manager?" "Yeah, but that don't make no difference when Mr. Crater wants something. So what do you have instead?" Slowly, DJ got up. He spoke very carefully, feeling a sudden strong urge of anger and resentment. "My name is DJ Dillon. I live in Stony Ridge, and I'm not hungry anymore." He walked angrily out the door and onto the sidewalk, vaguely aware that there was someone else standing there. DJ turned to peer through the plate glass window at Mr. Crater's back. DJ saw Mr. Crater with slightly scooped shoulders, so his shoulders kind of bent forward. Yeah. He wore frayed blue overalls and a faded denim jacket. He probably didn't weigh more than 120 pounds, DJ decided, which is not very much for a man. Ormley was maybe an inch taller than DJ, but didn't outweigh him. Ormley had the same general physical appearance as the older man. Mr. Crater was eating rapidly, hunched over his plate. Not too exaggerated. But Ormley had swiveled around on the counter stool and seemed to be almost sneering at DJ. DJ had never felt such sudden, bitter anger and resentment. As he looked inside the little cafe, he heard a girl's voice. "What happened, DJ?" He jerked as he recognized Kathy Stagg. She was standing beside him, had been the whole time. He realized she was a year younger than he was and also lived in Stony Ridge. Kathy had reddish gold hair parted in the middle. Well, mine's parted at the side, but right down the middle. That partly hid her face. Her eyes were even bluer than DJ's. She had so many freckles on her face, shoulders, and arms that when she tanned, her freckles just kind of grew together. I don't quite know," the boy admitted. "I ordered ham and eggs, and that man just came in and—" His voice trailed off. He was embarrassed, maybe even ashamed at letting the man take his food like that. DJ was also embarrassed because he knew that Kathy had seen the rest. His mind spun, trying to think what he should have done or said, or whether he had done the right thing. After all, it was only a plate of ham and eggs, wasn't it? Kathy asked softly, "You know who he is?" "No." DJ was so upset his voice was barely audible. He could barely hear it. "Never saw him before." "I think that's Rankin T. Crater. Everyone calls him Old Man Crater. Rich miner, cattleman, lumberman, and so forth. Some people say he's a miser, too. He's still got the first penny that he's ever earned. That's his nephew, Ormley Kramer, who's lived with him ever since Ormley's father, Mr. Crater's only brother, died when Ormley was little. He took Ormley from his own mother in a court fight because Mr. Crater had the money and the power, and the boy's mother had nothing. How'd you know all that, Kathy? Everybody knows. I didn't. Sometimes boys don't listen as good as girls. But if you're going to be a writer, you need to... Don't tell me what I should do, DJ snapped. He was instantly sorry. Kathy blinked in surprise. Maybe she was waiting for DJ to apologize, but he was so angry and upset that he just turned and stared unseeingly down the street. You get mad enough, it just makes your vision narrower, and sometimes all you can see is that anger. And that's where DJ was. The girl asked gently, "Are you going to tell your father?" "Why should I tell him?" DJ replied without thinking, his tone still sharp. He thought quickly and decided he'd made the right decision. Dad had always been a bad one to lose his temper. In fact, he had twice been in jail for fighting. But that had changed since he had become a Christian some months before. However, DJ wasn't sure that Dad might not still blow up at Mr. Crater for what he had just done. If Dad knew, he might just go storming into the cafe and beat up old Mr. Crater. Yet, DJ didn't explain this to Kathy. Instead, he said more gently, "See you later," then turned and walked swiftly back to the old pickup where he was to meet his father. When Dad arrived with the new axe handle he'd bought, DJ was so angry that he barely said anything. Dad whistled an old cowboy tune as he climbed behind the steering wheel and started the pickup truck. His square, powerful shoulders reflected in the dusty windshield. Dad wasn't a very tall man, but he was strong and quick. He worked as a choker setter for a lumbering company logging around Stony Ridge. DJ slouched in his seat and looked out the open window. He didn't notice the great forests of evergreen trees that marched from the edge of town up one mountain range and down another as far as the boy could see. DJ didn't even see the black-topped road that wandered around tight hairpin curves. Those are real tight curves. You go one way and it turns, it goes right back almost towards his home. DJ didn't see his reflection in the windshield, the unruly blonde hair blowing in the wind, his square jaw and clean-cut features. DJ didn't hear anything either, except the thud of his hot blood as it scalded through his body. He was thinking about what Mr. Crater had done to him and the way Ormley had grinned. DJ was angry because he had not stood up to the man. And the worst part was that Kathy had seen what happened. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "You enjoy your breakfast, DJ?" "Didn't eat," he answered shortly. "Why not? Didn't you have enough money?" "Yeah, I had enough money. Just wasn't hungry." "Something happened?" Dad asked suspiciously. He kept his eyes on the road as he steered expertly around a sharp curve marked with a 15-mile-per-hour sign limit. "Nothing worth talking about, Dad." His father glanced sharply at him and shrugged. "I ran into Paul Stagg, the preacher, at the hardware store. Paul said there's a ghost dog been running the hills between Indian Springs and Stony Ridge lately. Runs only at night alone, not with a pack of hounds. Paul said the hounds got the most perfect ball mouth of any dog he ever heard. DJ suddenly sat straight up, thinking of Alfred. Who owns that hound, Dad? Nobody seems to know. In fact, some customers at the hardware store said that every coon and bear and cougar hunter around wants to own that dog, but nobody's ever seen him, just heard him. That's why they're calling him the ghost dog. DJ tried to put the ham and egg incident out of his mind so he could think about the ghost dog. Dad, DJ said, thinking of Alfred, do you suppose that ghost dog is really wild? Not likely, but he's new to the area, that's for sure. Some newcomers must have moved here with him. Otherwise, the hunters would have known his voice and who he belongs to. If Alfred and I can catch this ghost dog, could Alfred keep him? If nobody claims him, I expect so. But lots of men around here would give their eye teeth for that there hound. I hear they've already tried to follow him, but didn't do no good. He makes real music in the night air, Paul told me. And Paul should know. Didn't he run hounds most of his life until he got the call to be a lay preacher? Excuse me. DJ didn't answer. He was thinking about what having a ball-mouthed hound would mean to Alfred. At least he was trying to think about the hound. DJ felt such strong resentment towards Mr. Crater that he couldn't think about anything else. And for the first time he could ever remember, DJ was fighting a desire to get even with someone. He hadn't felt that way about being run off from the barbed wire fence, but then again, no girl had seen that happen. DJ was frowning when his dad glanced sharply at him and asked, "Are you sure you're okay? You don't talk about what's just happened." "No. That bad, huh?" DJ didn't answer. Dad's powerful hand twisted the steering wheel hard around another curve. His heavy logging boots worked the clutch and the brake. "DJ, you want me to drop you off by Alfred's house? Spend the afternoon with him?" Wordlessly, DJ nodded. Alfred was his best friend, and the one person in the world DJ could tell what he was really thinking. And DJ needed to talk about the way he felt towards the Craters and the dog that Dad had mentioned. Suddenly, DJ sat up straight in the cab. He hadn't done anything a few minutes ago, but if he met up with Mr. Crater and his nephew again, DJ would do something. He didn't know what it was, but he was going to do something. He had a strong hunch they were going to meet again soon. Oh boy, that sounds like trouble, doesn't it, Christopher?
Yes, it does.
Well, that's the end of this story. Of this chapter, I mean. That was Two Strangers and a Ghost Dog. So, tomorrow we will be reading The Stray That Stayed. I think they mean a stray dog that stayed, yeah. So we'll find out more about that tomorrow. I just want to tell you I love you. I really do. But more importantly, God loves you and He always will. So try to remember that. And I will be reading to you again tomorrow. And I look forward to that time. Christopher is heading home tomorrow. So I'm going to miss him, but we've had a really good time. So, good night for now. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.